senators who come from the Kalenjin land. That's why I said the distinguished senators from the Kalenjin nation should behave like parliamentarians and not like they are at Kimalel goat auction, Mr. Speaker, because that's what the two senators were doing. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, back to the point that I was prosecuting just before we went for lunch. I was speaking actually of the bewilderment and the shock that many of us got as we observed what was happening at the Namanga border, where we were informed to our utter shock by officers manning that border station that the norm nowadays, Mr. Speaker, is that you have hundreds of lorries lining up from Tanzania bringing in goods from Kenya and nothing completely that leaves Kenya. Perhaps, in fact, that officer did mention that the only thing that we see leave Kenya from Kenya to Tanzania is Brookside milk, Mr. Speaker, and you know the connections therein. That's why they are able to secure such deals, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate. It points out to the mismanagement that we've made of our economy. And I did mention, Mr. Speaker, that that is still evident in this budget policy statement. The desire to invest in huge capital-intensive infrastructure projects whose motivation, Mr. Speaker, is a 10% kickback that many of these mandarins are actually chasing. And I cited the example of the 50 new level 3 hospitals that is being proposed as part of what will be built at the whooping cost of close to 10 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. And I did mention that, number one, we need first to read what is the evaluation criteria. How did they arrive at the figure 50? Mr. Speaker, you are well aware that for the last 2 terms of this House of Parliament, health as a ministry is one of those very notorious ministries that continue to retain colossal amounts of funds that should have otherwise been devolved to our counties for our county governments to better manage the health function. But for purposes of controlling procurement and ensuring that the mandarins in both Treasury and Afya House get kickbacks, they retain this money as a pool and go and dish around, you know, in different parts of the country, whether you need or you don't need. What is the assessment? What has been done, Mr. Speaker, to assess that Kitui as a county needs X number of level 3 hospitals? Perhaps in their health priorities, that is not what they need. It varies from what Bungoma needs. And the same can be said of all the 47 counties. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this centralist attitude that continues to be seen even in our budget is something that we need to move away from. And as a committee, we have made our statements that come the time where we shall be handling the Division of Revenue and County Allocation of Revenue Act, until we are satisfied, Mr. Speaker, that there is need for these 50 new level 3 hospitals and the counties where this distribution will be given, because we understand, Senator Moses Wetangula has mentioned times without number on this floor, how certain people in their minds, the map of Kenya only revolves around the provinces or the districts where they were born. They don't imagine that there's a Kenya bigger than themselves. And we have seen how they've done with Ministry of Agriculture, where they've put some of these funds that you're mentioning, Mr. Speaker, to the utter exclusion of the rest of the country and more deserving cases, Mr. Speaker. I did mention before we went on break that indeed, Mr. Speaker, if President Uhuru Kenyatta believes the speech that he read before the nation on the Jamhuri Day of 12th of December this year, that BBI continues to be a deferred dream, that BBI was all about sending additional resources to our counties, then let him not oppose the proposal of this committee to have 539 billion Kenya shillings go to our counties. Because it will be clear to the nation that indeed he believes that 35% of the resources that, that are shared amongst ourselves as a country needs to go to the counties. You do not need to do actually a constitutional amendment. The Budget and Finance Committee of the Senate has proposed a better way at how to achieve it. So let us see what will be the reaction of Treasury, so that we see whether indeed the President believes in the statements and the things that he has been mentioning in the public. Mr. Speaker, as I draw to a close, debt continues to be a nagging issue. In the moving notes of the chair, and I think even the supporting, when Senator Moses Wetangula was seconding this particular motion, Mr. Speaker, he did mention of our continued struggle with the Treasury just to obtain the debt register. Can you believe it or not, Mr. Speaker, that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya has asked for more than 10 times that Treasury do furnishes the House of Parliament with our nation's debt register. The best that we have ever gotten is actually an Excel spreadsheet that was sent to us on one of our sessions with the CS for Treasury, and told that is the closest thing we have. Perhaps actually it is a reality that we have borrowed so much to a point that we do not know actually whom we owe money at this particular point, that we actually just end up paying. Yet this continues to be the biggest struggle of our economy to this particular date, Mr. Speaker. It will be a travesty of justice. It will be actually, Mr. Speaker, a dereliction of duties on us as senators if we conclude this session of Parliament without laying to rest the question of debt and how it continues to bother us as a country, Mr. Speaker. Because debt, Mr. Speaker, has a financial effect on the division of revenue for us as a country. Because, Mr. Speaker, for obvious reasons you will know, and it is noted even in this statement by our committee, Mr. Speaker, that the first charge to the national revenue, before you even think about paying salaries to civil servants, is to clear the debt. As it is today, it is more than 1 trillion Kenya shillings that we continue to pay. Mr. Speaker, it will be unfortunate if we allow this particular issue to continue without giving a final answer, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to speak also on this particular issue of deductions to counties. That is a trend that is continuing with Treasury. It began with the least medical equipment. We were not able to answer. You know, Mr. Speaker, even the Chinese, crude as they are, at least they allow us as a country, first of all, to collect revenue, then they deduct, or we send to them actually that which we owe to them. A new trend is emerging at the National Treasury, Mr. Speaker, and this cannot be allowed to ascertain and to obtain as a modus operandi in our country. Senator Moses Kajwang, as a chair of the Evolution Committee, challenges upon you. You saw yesterday in national media that now there is a proposal that actually the Treasury and NMS will be dealing and transacting directly to the exclusion of Nairobi County Government. There is nowhere in our constitution that they envision such an arrangement. At least you must give counties the chance to be able, you know, first of all, to receive the funds and pay your debt. What kind of hurry is this that we see NMS and the kind of things that they are doing, Mr. Speaker? You know, when you read this budget statement, Mr. Speaker, you don't get the sense that this is a broke country. When you see how some of these favored institutions like NMS and the Ministry of Defense, which have now become the popular, you know, government agencies for siphoning out public funds. When you see the things they do around this city, take the example of even this Parliament. You all know, Mr. Speaker, that the corridor, the walk path outside of Parliament, it was in such a good condition. Yet, out of the excitement or just the desire to pay the makers of these clay things that are displayed outside here, the cabro, you know, clay works, because the companies are known and the people that are known actually have the connections in Treasury, they came and removed very good walkways that were serving us. I don't recall any particular senator or member of parliament complaining that they are not able to access their offices in KICC, but just out of the desire to quickly cash out of such fishy deals, Mr. Speaker, then you see funds being channeled. And as if now that is not enough, they have come up with a proposal that from now henceforth, Nairobi County Government shall not even be getting the resources so that they for onward transmission to NMS, they'll actually be dealing directly with them. Senator Moses Kajwang, you cannot allow that to obtain at the level of the Evolution Committee. We need to speak to these particular issues because, by and large, Mr. Speaker, corruption still remains to be a nagging issue. It's part and parcel of our struggle as a country. And you know, as colleagues here, we speak, we joke about it, we speak about it in low tones, but I think in the absence, and you know, Senator Moses Wetangula, I heard you speak quite clearly and giving credit saying the president actually is doing a good job leading in this particular war. I hold a particularly different view because many of the promises that he has made in public about handling or slaying the dragon of corruption, none of it has ever come to fruition. He asked Kenyans to give him 21 days to handle the KEMSA COVID billionaires. up to date, they are walking free. Instead of going after those who looted these public resources, what did they do? They went back to fire sweepers and storemen, the people, ordinary citizens, the people who represent in this house, who committed absolutely no foul play in this particular issue, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support this report as it is. It is my sincere most hope that as colleagues, we shall not move even an inch or a comma of this particular report. Let us see the seriousness of the government in terms of supporting devolution by living up to the call of the Committee on Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to